This lesson is Working with Canvas. In this lesson, you'll learn about the Canvas API and how it's integrated with HTML5. You'll also learn how basic shapes, paths, colors, gradients, and animations can all be created using a combination of Canvas and JavaScript. So to get started, I'm working with this file here, canvastemplate.html, which is located in your lesson folder. And before we get started, let's just talk a little bit about what Canvas is and isn't. Technically speaking, Canvas is not included as part of the HTML5 specification. It's actually an API, and it's related to HTML5, but at the same time has a completely different path for development. You could think of Canvas as being a stage for 2D drawings and animations. So you may have experience with creating animated shapes and paths using something like Flash. Well, Canvas substitutes a drawing API or code for something like you would create in Flash. To see how this works, let's look at this page here. And within the HTML, we have our Canvas element. And we have an ID name, which allows us to target it at a certain point. And we also have a width and a height, in this case 300 and 300. There's also a style rule here, which gives us a margin around what eventually will be our canvas. However, Canvas doesn't really work by itself. It needs JavaScript to do its full job. And if we look up here in the head section, we can see a script that's part of this Canvas template document. What this will allow us to do is use the page for a drawing surface. So to see how we'll do that, let's add our first line of code here. In this particular line, I'm simply defining the width and height of the canvas context. In particular, I'm adding a stroke around the canvas. Notice that we've got the same values, 300 by 300, and this matches the width and height down below. Let's save this file and take a look at it in our browser. So not particularly fancy, but what we're seeing here is a 300 by 300 square as defined in our code. So it is important to note that the JavaScript and the HTML must match. In other words, if I go back to my code and I change this value here from 300 to 400, and I save this file, and I reload the page, you'll essentially see the bottom of this has been cropped. Why? Because I'm trying to make that rectangle larger than the 300 by 300 size of the canvas. So just want to keep that in mind as we look at some other examples. I'm going to go back and undo this. Save that file. So for the next three examples, I just want to show you the completed versions of some Canvas projects that you'll be working with. These are also located in your lesson folder in case you want to take a look. The first one I'll look at here is the color styles and gradients completed. I'll go ahead and save that. And then I'll open it up in the browser. So here we can see a soda glass that has a gradient going from top to bottom, and we have some bubbles inside as well. If we look at the code with this, it's actually quite a bit of code. And we can imagine a point in time when this code would not have to be created by hand and where a drawing application could create Canvas graphics. At this point in time, this sort of application is in the very beginning stages of development and is no equivalent to something like Flash, for example. However, Canvas gives us some interesting characteristics. I'm going to go back to the browser for a moment. Now, I happen to be in Firefox, and here there's a special feature that you can use by right-clicking on an image. You can choose View Image. And what this will actually do is convert that canvas graphic to a PNG or a PNG. This is a common image format on the web, and I can even go as far as to right-click this image by choosing Copy, go into a program like Photoshop, make a new document, click OK, and then I'll paste. Now ignore the fact that there's a black background here. There's a reason for that, which I'm going to skip for the moment. But the point here is we now have a graphic that was created from code. Again, looking down the road, we can imagine web applications that create things such as icons, charts, or graphs. These are all instances of where we might be able to use the Canvas element. Let's go back to your samples, and I'll use this page using transformscompleted.html. Here in this document, you'll see there are a number of rectangles, and we're doing various translations. Translations simply mean moving or rotating or scaling. And in this case, let's go ahead and look at this in the browser. And here we can see a number of different squares that have been rotated or moved in various ways. Again, this allows us to position elements to a certain degree using Canvas. The last example we'll look at here is this one, drawingloopcompleted.html. This particular file uses a combination of JavaScript for animation as well as the initial Canvas object itself. So again, we have to use both JavaScript and Canvas to create a final product. In this case, what we'll see here is a small UFO going across the screen randomly, and when it exits one side, it will come out the other side. So let's take a look at that now by opening the drawing loop completed in our browser. And here we can see the UFO goes across and reappears at a random spot when it hits the edge of the screen. So it's important to realize that Canvas is in the initial stages of development. Currently, there are many demos out there using Canvas, but again, we can foresee a time when Canvas will be used to create user interface, charts, graphs, animations, almost anything that you can imagine. That's it for now. In this lesson, you learned a little bit about the Canvas API and how you can use basic shapes, paths, colors, gradients, and animations using a combination of Canvas and JavaScript.